This video is going to cover the 8 phases and the 3 prongs of EMDR therapy. Hey everybody, my name is Dr. Scott Giacomucci. I am a certified EMDR practitioner and consultant. And in this video, I'm going to briefly cover and outline the 8 phases of EMDR and the 3-pronged approach of EMDR. So this will provide a nice overview for anybody who is considering EMDR therapy as a client, or referring a loved one, or referring your own client for EMDR, or for somebody who is practicing EMDR and needs a little refresher on these different phases. I actually find that the 8 phases feel like they're not the best way of summarizing what EMDR is. And I prefer to talk about it first through the 3-pronged approach. In a previous video, I also differentiated EMDR resourcing from EMDR processing, which is one way of simplifying the 8 phases of EMDR. So first, let's talk about the 3-pronged approach. So 3-pronged approach to EMDR is past, present, and future. That over the course of care, over the course of time in EMDR therapy, we first assess what presenting issues are and connect them back to past memories. And we go back and we reprocess and desensitize those past memories. After that, we come back to present day triggers and we desensitize and work through present day triggers. That's the 2nd prong. And the 3rd prong is about future templates, that we create imaginal kind of visions of how we want to respond in future situations that might be distressing or triggering, related to the memories that we worked on previously. So after preparing for EMDR, we move into EMDR processing of past memories. That's the 1st prong. Desensitizing of present day triggers is the 2nd prong. And creating future templates is the 3rd prong. These are the 3 prongs of EMDR treatment. Now, the 8 phases of EMDR really take place both within those 3 prongs and beyond those 3 prongs. So, for example, the first 2 phases of EMDR, they take place before we get into those 3 prongs. And these first 2 phases of EMDR are about history taking and about treatment planning, building a relationship with the therapist, establishing safety, and then preparing. Phase 2 is about preparation, preparing for the processing. And the preparation phase involves what we call EMDR resourcing. This is where we're strengthening positive memories, providing coping skills, and practicing these new tools for emotional regulation. So phase 1, history and treatment planning. Phase 2, preparation and resourcing. The 3rd phase of EMDR is where we start to move into assessing target memories. So phase 3, well, one way to think about this is that phase 1 and 2 we're primarily doing at the beginning of the therapeutic relationship. Of course, we're returning to that and building on it, but the bulk of it's happening at the beginning. And then phases 3 through 8, we're cycling through with each memory. So phases 1 and 2 we're primarily doing at the beginning of treatment, and then phases 3 through 8 we're cycling through with each memory that we work on. This is why I feel like the 8 phases are a little confusing. Phase 3, again, is about assessment. So in assessment, we're assessing a specific memory. This is where we go through that EMDR worksheet where we ask the client, what's the presenting issue? What's the memory related to this? What's the part of this memory that represents the most disturbing aspect? What's the negative belief about yourself now when you think about that? What positive belief would you rather believe about yourself when you think about that? We assess the validity of the cognition on a scale of 1 to 7. How much do you believe that to be true? Then we move on and we assess emotions. When you think about the worst part of this now and that negative belief, what emotions do you experience? And the SUD scale on a scale of 0 to 10, how disturbing does it feel to remember this right now? And what body sensations do you notice when you think of it? That's phase 3. And again, we use that same phase, those same questions for pretty much every traumatic memory that we're going to reprocess with EMDR. Phase 4 is desensitization. Phase 4, we apply for each individual memory. So after we've assessed the target memory, we move into the desensitization phase. This is where we apply bilateral stimulation in the form of eye movements or audio or tactile, butterfly tapping or the TheraTappers. And we move through various sets of bilateral stimulation to desensitize the content of that memory. This is where we start by saying to the client, I want you to take a moment, focus on the worst part of that memory and that negative belief and the feelings and the sensations. Follow my fingers and just notice what you experience. There's no right or wrong, just notice anything you experience. We do that for however many sets of back and forth movements, about 30 seconds or so. We ask the client to take a breath, and then we say, what do you notice? What did you notice that time? The client lets us know what they noticed. We say, great, you're doing awesome, phenomenal. I want you to focus on that, whatever they said they just noticed, and follow my fingers again. And we go right back into another set of bilateral stimulation. We ask the client again, what did you notice during that? The client tells us what they noticed, and we say, great, you're doing a wonderful job. Now I want you to focus on that and follow my fingers. And we keep going until the client repeats the same thing. When we ask them what they noticed, they say the same thing twice. Nothing changed. I noticed the same thing. At that point, or if the client says they notice something and it seems like we're really getting far away from the memory we started with, for either instance, we would bring the client back to the target. And what that means is we would repeat back to the client what they mentioned initially in terms of the memory we're working on, the most disturbing part of it. And we'd say, I want you to take a moment, come on back where we started. Usually at this point, we get a quick SUDS rating. Earlier you said the worst part of this memory was X, Y, and Z. When you think about that now, on a scale of 0 to 10, how disturbing does it feel right now in this moment? The client gives us a SUDS rating, and we jot it down and compare it to the SUDS rating earlier. And we say, great, now what's the most disturbing part of this memory? Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's new, now that some of the disturbance has been desensitized. And we continue with additional sets of bilateral stimulation, either until the client starts to connect with adaptive information and it seems like the memory is reprocessing out, or until they end up blocked and we need to be more active in our interventions during this fourth phase of desensitization, or we start to run out of time, in which case we need to start to wrap the session up. So phase 4, desensitization. Phase 5 is what's called installation. So we only move on to phase 5 if we have successfully desensitized the memory, the target memory. If the SUDS rating gets down to a 0, if we say to the client, I want you to remember the worst part of this memory, and right now on a scale of 0 to 10, how disturbing does it feel to remember it? And they say 0. Oh my gosh, I can think of that without feeling disturbed. It's just another memory, it feels neutral. That's a 0 out of 10. Then we move on to installation, the 5th phase. You'd be surprised at how frequently we are able to get a memory from a high score of 8, 9, 10 on the SUDS rating, subjective units of distress, all the way down to a 0 in an hour's time or 45-minute session. It happens quite often, quite frequently. So much so that I've come to expect it more times than not when I'm doing EMDR with a client who's ready to do EMDR. So if we successfully complete desensitization, then we move on to phase 5, which is installation. In the installation phase, we come back to the positive belief or the positive cognition that the client identified earlier on in phase 3 when we were assessing the target memory. In that third phase, we asked, what's the negative belief about yourself when you think of this memory now? And then we say, if you could remove that negative belief and replace it with a positive one, what would you rather believe about yourself going forward when you think of this memory? So in phase 5, we're trying to install and associate and connect that positive belief with the traumatic memory that has now been neutralized, that's now desensitized and no longer as distressing as it used to be. So we actively pair the positive belief with the disturbing memory. So let's say the client initially said, my negative belief when I think of that memory is that I'm unworthy. And what I want to believe is that I am worthy. After phase 4, desensitizing that memory, we check in, we say, hey, at the beginning of this, you said what you wanted to believe about yourself when you think of this memory is that you are worthy. Does that still fit for you as a positive cognition, as a positive belief? If the client says yes, then we start to pair that positive belief with that memory. And usually that involves asking the client to repeat that positive belief either to themselves internally or even verbally repeat it while remembering the memory and focusing on images associated with the memory. So this is the installation phase, phase 5. Phase 6 of EMDR is the body scan. So this is usually a simple and quick phase of EMDR where after the positive cognition has been installed, we ask the client simply to take a moment, check in with their body, take a couple breaths, and notice anything that they're experiencing in their body. To scan, from head to toe internally and notice anything that's happening within their body. When they think of the memory, are there any sensations left over? Are there any somatic symptoms that they're still feeling or noticing? Or is their body in a state of neutrality and calmness? If they can say that their body is neutral and calm during a body scan, then we move to closure, which is phase 7 of EMDR. In closure, we check in with the client. Usually we affirm and validate them. Man, that was powerful. You did an awesome job today. I'm really proud of you for doing this work. How was that for you? What was the most important part of it? What were some new perspectives about this memory that you're taking away from? What do you really want to hold on to from the session today? This is where we start to move towards closure. In the closure phase of EMDR, we like to remind clients that many times the processing will continue after the session, that our brain and our mind will continue to process what we experienced. We might start to remember things that we didn't remember before. We might have dreams or nightmares or other somatic or emotional reactions or experiences. And we ask the client to utilize the resources, the EMDR resources that we cultivated earlier in phase 2 of the process, if they need to, and to jot down anything that they notice between sessions that seems to be related to the memory that we just desensitized and reprocessed. So this is phase 7, closure. The final phase of EMDR is phase 8, which is evaluation or reevaluation. So in the reevaluation phase, this is usually happening in the next session or later on after we've successfully desensitized and reprocessed the memory. We want to check in on that memory and reevaluate if the change that was previously experienced is sustained and lasting change. So if last week I met with a client, we reprocessed and desensitized the memory, we got the memory down to a 0 in terms of distress, we installed a new positive cognition. Now I want to check in on that memory and the client, and I'll say something like, hey, last week we reprocessed that memory related to the school shooting you experienced. And when we finished the session, you said it was a 0 out of 10. You could remember that memory without any disturbance or distress. Let's check in on that memory and see where things are at now that some time has passed. I'm going to ask you right now to recall the most disturbing part of that memory and consider right now in this moment when you remember that memory and think of the worst part of it. On a scale of 0 to 10, how disturbing does it feel right now? 0 is neutral. 10 is the worst disturbance you could imagine. And the client will give us a score somewhere between 0 and 10. In the reevaluation, what we're looking for is the SUDS score, the distress rating, the same as it was last week. Is it still a 0? In which case, we can confidently move forward and identify the next target for desensitization, or move on from the past memories into recent day triggers and then future templates. However, sometimes we reevaluate the memory and it was a 0 last week, but this week it's a 3 and the distress on it has increased, in between sessions. In which case we'll have to evaluate, what's going on? Was there something distressful or triggering that remind you of this memory? Was there a new trauma that you experienced? Is there something going on in the news that relates to this memory? Is there an anniversary related to this coming up that's increasing the distress around it? Or sometimes what can happen is if the memory does not go to a 0 or stay at a 0, this might be an indicator to me as an EMDR therapist that there's a touchstone memory, an earlier memory that we missed and that we did not target yet. And so we'll assess for all these different things. Usually in reevaluation, if the SUDS is below a 3, we'll just jump right back into desensitizing the remaining distress to try to get it down to a 0 again. So these are the 8 phases of EMDR: history taking, treatment planning, relationship building, preparation and stabilization, resourcing, assessment, identifying the target memory, desensitization, installing the positive cognition, body scan, closure, and reevaluation. So I hope that this video is informative and helpful for you. If it is, I'd encourage you to check out some of the other videos on this channel and subscribe to the channel in that we release videos related to EMDR, related to trauma therapy and trauma-informed care on a pretty regular basis. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you learned. Let us know if you have any questions about EMDR or if there's any other topics that would be helpful to cover in this video series.